Ryan, I look at your resume and I see the perfect corporate soldier. You made partner at PwC by 31. Amazing achievement. You had the status, you had the money, you had the black belt discipline. But you said something that stopped me dead in my tracks. You said all dashboards lights were green at work, but they were red at home. Now, on this show, we talk about dumb ways to get hacked, whether it be by Russians or any hackers for that matter. But I think you hacked yourself. You call it functional depression. So, who was Ryan Ettridge hiding behind those green lights? And what was the specific moment you realized the system was broken?
Dude, it's a bit of a journey. So thanks. Good to be here, by the way. So, in the traditional rise to success, it's the most common corporate ladder style rise to success. You can chase the corporate wins, which in professional services, which I've been a part of for decades, is sales and delivery and relationships and client outcomes and all of these things that give this emotional high and dopamine hit, especially if you're good at it. And I got particularly good at cybersecurity and building trust with clients. And of course, trust in the technical world is pretty important, especially to get continued work. So I got pretty good at that pretty quickly and was always looking for ways to improve systems and processes and in the cybersecurity world, come up with new cybersecurity architectures and ways to integrate and design or whatever else. So I got really good at that. And in the corporate sales driven world, the more you can do that, the better you can do that, then of course, the better the business performs. And then you get really good at your technical skill, you get really good at integrating that. And so the dashboard from a corporate perspective was all green in that I could integrate lots of cool technologies. I could sell it. I could grow a business. I could teach a team. I could do all of the technical things, right? And so that persona becomes this professional mask or identity that is really easy to attach to, because when we become known or seen as that, then it tends to become the energy that we embody and everyone else sees, right? So that's this professional persona that I had learned how to master, right? And that was getting good at a technical skill, being picked up by people in the industry as, hey, come and work for us. And people would chase me, and I was known as being good at this stuff and I would love it. Yes, come and get me. And no challenge is too big. But actually, outside of the professional world, in the social world, throughout the early 20s and into the 30s, the challenge was, how do I be seen? Right? I wanted to be seen as successful. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be connected and relatable. But really, work was my only corporate identity, right? But actually, I was struggling with a binge drinking challenge. I'd picked that up through teens and early 20s, and that was this way that I had learned how to connect with friends and whatever, but I couldn't shake it. Yeah, and so when I kind of collided these worlds of partying and binge drinking and wanted to be seen as this corporate identity, but also didn't want to be seen as this shameful, less than ideal social entity, the two worlds collided, right? So there was this constant battle between, how do I become this professional, awesome leader? I wanted to be seen in the social world, and the way that I could kind of engage was through alcohol. And then when they came together, it was like this dichotomy. It was this weird, interesting, binge drink. There's this guilt and shame, which makes me work harder. And the harder I work, it's oh, I now deserve to go and celebrate this with my friends. And so then, anyway, there's this weird habit of they both couldn't coexist, right? So the challenge that I had was I didn't know how to stop this shameful guilt person that I didn't want to be seen as and have this successful career. So I couldn't work out how to fix it, right? So I had to engage an executive coach. And in fact, I reached out to corporate executives in the PwC world, executive psychologists, and say, hey, they're like, hey, I think you need an executive coach. I'm like, I don't really know what that is, but because I didn't know how to resolve this non-technical challenge, right? I knew how to solve the cyber ones, but I didn't know how to solve this other weird inner challenge that I was facing. That's the power of the coach, right? So this functional depression, let's call it, was hiding behind this corporate mask, not wanting anyone else to know about all these inner challenges, because it's like, am I broken? Is this a mistake? Am I a piece of shit? Was actually some of the inner dialogue that was happening there. And of course, the coach had helped me see, like any coach does. We were just talking about the soccer coaches before. They can see beyond the current challenge. A coach's job is to help someone see beyond their current challenge, to help them get through that, to navigate that, to help them see that it's actually not a problem. It's just this thing you need to navigate. And so for me, it was this inner child game, wanting to be seen. I was the fat kid at school, didn't want to be seen as the fat kid. And so then I would do anything I needed to do to be liked. And so the corporate identity was really easy. I could win at that. I could be liked for that. But then there's, of course, this dichotomy of this binge drinking, which reminded me of the fat kid, and all of this, lots of different stuff happening. So this inner turmoil, or this inner game, needed someone to help me see through that, so that I could then clear out some of these old unhelpful habits, and now, of course, step back into both the corporate and the social world, including my home life with the kids and the wife and everything else. But yeah, that was a real battle. That was like a 10, 15-year battle that was seemingly hidden behind the mask of professional excellence.
Yeah, it's so important. So many key things you said there. The inner challenge is definitely huge, and you don't see it on the outside. You meet people, we've seen the best people in the world who have ended up in tragic situations because they didn't have the coach or that outside voice guiding them in the direction to help them better themselves. And I wholeheartedly agree with that statement, that the coach's job should be to get the best out of you by seeing through that and guiding you and telling you, don't listen to that voice in your head telling you that I'm a piece of shit, or I'm so shameful, or whatever it is. And that's amazing. So, kudos to your coach that you had, because he's done an amazing job. I mean, again, I know you from the outside world. I don't know you internally, but from what I'm seeing and what you've achieved, he's done a brilliant job. So I want to dig into that, what you call a black belt mindset. You weren't two black belts by the age of 18, which is a good way to not be picked on if you were a bit larger. That's definitely a good way to do that. But you're obsessed with discipline. And we often know high achievers just are running away from something. Now, one of my favorite mentors, I like to call, is Stephen Bartlett from Diary of a CEO. He talks about the inner child driving the bus, if you like.
Yeah. Nice.
So was that 18-year-old artist actually chasing success, or was he just terrified of being stuck? And how much of that fear built the empire you have today?
Yeah. The fear-driven mentality has a real strength to it, has a real power to it, right? Because we either move away from something or towards something, and often the moving away from fear is a really powerful motivator. It's a problem when you can't control that, right? If you can embrace the fear and if you can integrate the fear, then it is actually super powerful. Use the term fearlessness as not having fear, but not fearing the fear, embracing the fear, letting it teach you or guide you, or whatever the energetic movement is. That fearlessness is embracing the fear. So your question of Was that the motivator? Yeah, I would say moving away from that, not wanting to be seen as in a particular way, was a huge motivator, right? And then, of course, the reward of being able to work out how to be seen as something and how to solve problems and how to get shit done became this real power, superpower. Actually, it's what I embrace today as an achiever, an overachiever, and someone that can work stuff out. The difference today versus then is it's a choice, and the fear today, as it arises and guides, is just a calling to investigate something as opposed to run away or hide something. The black belt mindset is we have to work to become good at something physically, right? Even if we have this awesome insight and conceptual vision, which many of us have the gifts to see, it still takes practice and motion to bring that to life or form it, right? So bring it into formation. The black belt mindset is you got to be wobbly initially, the white belts, the colored belts, before you get to the black belts. You've got to be wobbly before you start to get grounded and structured and more confident in the direction that you're going. And in martial arts, that is the ability to navigate different situations and foresee it as it's happening and therefore move with it. The black belt mindset then becomes comfort with discomfort, knowing that you don't know everything, but knowing that you'll work it out. That's the black belt mindset. And that is to say, someone will still kick the shit out of you, even if you're a black belt, because they might be this super awesome black belt, but you're okay with that, right? You won't get completely destroyed. And by the way, you already know how to pick that up. And so the next time you might not get the shit kicked out of you, you might be a little better. And so the black belt mindset is embracing all of this uncertainty, right? And being able to work with it and guide and play, actually. It becomes this playfulness to life instead of always trying to get to that black belt and the black belt's the goal. Actually, it's not. Actually, the black belt is the doorway to actually what's really waiting for you, which is this level of mastery and openness to anything.
Yep. That's invaluable advice, Ryan. I absolutely agree with all of that. The choice is, we have a choice of everything in life, 100%. It's my choice to decide to study for something and not go and play a video game. It's my choice to, put the effort in to put a business plan or a project plan together rather than just going on Amazon, whatever it is in life. Food, that's my weakness. I put it out there, everyone. Food is my weakness. Don't put donuts in front of me, please, I beg you. But yeah, it's a choice. It's my choice to eat that donut and gain those calories or go and ride the bike for half an hour. Agreed, wholeheartedly. And, one of my other great mentors, I like to call it, Jimmy Quick, he's the memory guru.
Oh, yeah.
He said something that I love, which is we grew up with that mentality that we say out loud, practice makes perfect. Whereas he says, and I wholeheartedly agree, practice makes practical, because at the end of the day, if I'm taught how to kick a ball really shit or how to use a spreadsheet and use crappy formulas and just practice that, well, then I'm not going to get better. I'm going to get the shit kicked out of me every single time.
Yeah.
And what do I learn from that? And how do I approach it the next time? So yeah, that's really cool. That's definitely something that everyone should be thinking about, and definitely agree with.
Nice. And that's even the openness to take coaching and mentoring, to not to be so stubborn to go, I'm going to work this out myself. It's like, well, you need to practice it yourself. But if you are open to curiosity and asking questions about somebody else who has mastered it, then, you take what works from them and integrate it, right? It's, dude, your spreadsheet is shit. You can run 1,000,000 miles an hour, but all you're going to do is make it 1,000,000 miles worse. Yeah. Good that you've got discipline, but I tell you what, your stubbornness is the, interference to actually discipline being successful. So yeah, there's also a level of, being open to feedback and integration as well, right?
Yeah. Will you stop picking on my friend Ego? Leave him alone, please, Ryan.
Exactly.
Now, let's get into what you specialize in, my friend. As someone who works in cyber as well. I guess I'm sick of the cybersecurity industry lying to small businesses, because they've come up with this amazing framework called 2701, which no one in a small business knows what that means, right? Framework, which costs 30 grand and takes months to implement. And then effectively we've got nothing. Now, 60% of attacks are now aimed at the little guy, and that could be more. It's just from my quick research. We're talking your cafes, we're talking your tradies, we're talking the small businesses that run the backbone of this actual economy, not the bigger players out there. So I guess for the people listening to this podcast, Ryan, be honest with me. Has the cybersecurity industry built a gap of doom on purpose? And why have we left 99% of businesses as sitting ducks?
Short answer, no, not intentionally. So cybersecurity is, like any technical domain, complex, right? And it moves fast because the speed of technology has moved incredibly, ridiculously fast, and it is still today. And so it's really hard to keep up with that. It will be easier with AI for sure to keep up with it, but also to chase it. Traditionally, the focus has been on what we are able to influence and leverage, right? Now, I spent 18 of the last 21 years in enterprise cybersecurity. And the focus was on integrating consistency and predictability and governance around cybersecurity for enterprises, because that didn't exist as we're starting to integrate firewalls and network security over the decades, right? So that was really important. 27001 is a beautiful framework for being able to teach enterprises and those with skills how to run a risk-based cybersecurity program, right? But it does require expertise. It does require the people inside of the organization to know how to interpret what it's trying to achieve and then build it, right? And I use this metaphor of the driver of the vehicle versus the mechanics of the vehicle. The enterprise model are both the drivers of the vehicles and their own mechanics that can service this. The image that just came to mind, the engineers that are on this gigantic ship can actually keep the ship risk managed. The small business doesn't have the mechanics, the engineers inside the organization to fix the thing. Some of them do, a very small percentage, 3-5%, don't know exactly, but it's very small, that have the maturity and the desire and the budget to actually build their own engineers that can operate the ship as they're driving it. But 90 to 95% of them don't. Their job is to drive the vehicle. They want to know that there's a digital vehicle that they can drive on the digital highway, being the web, right? It's like you can't give them the manual to fix their own seatbelt, but they need to know that it needs seatbelts. So the small business is like the driver of the vehicle. Their vehicle is their business. And for their business to be roadworthy to drive on the digital highway, they need a safety certificate. They want to know that cybersecurity is being done, not know how to do it. The mistake has been thinking that if we just reduce the number of technical things that a small business needs to do and give that to them, they can still work it out. It doesn't work that, because they don't have the engineers and the cyber experts, the cyber black belts, to be able to say, that's what this means versus that. So they have to rely on this ecosystem of engineers and black belts and mechanics in the vehicle world that can help them take accountability that their vehicle is good enough to drive on the road, right? So that approach, the 27001 approach, works where there are skills and maturity and readiness or ripeness for the business to run that thing. But most of them don't have the experts, never will, don't have the budget, don't have the desire to operate something like that. And so when it's forced upon them to say, because this works for the big banks, hey, it should work for you, that is a mistake. That is not intentional, but there hasn't been anything until now, of course, being CyberCert and SMB 1001, that actually works for the SMB. Everything else has been designed with this enterprise mindset, expecting the SMB to have the black belts inside their business to work this thing out, but they don't. And no matter how many paperwork resources you give them to work it out, it's like giving me the shortened legal manual for me to become a legal expert to answer my own legal questions. Well, I can't do that. I will go to the legal community. I want them, because if the shit hits the fan, I want to know that these guys have actually helped me. Same with insurance, same with all the other expertise, right? So the challenge has been, and yet in the same way, enterprises have their own legal experts. Of course, they hired them, but the small business is not that.
That's a very good analogy. I love that. The car, the driver. That's awesome. Now, you said it. You've launched the SMB 1001. You call it a standard, but look, I'm going to be honest, I call it a lifeline because I deal with this stuff every single day. You've broken it down into belts. You've got bronze, silver, gold, which I love, by the way, because it's not binary and it doesn't have weird numbers and stuff behind it. It's simple to understand. But I deal with these businesses every single day. And the one thing I hear, and I know we've spoken about this, that you hear all the time, is they're like, Bora, mate, I'm just a small time plumber. I'm too small to get hacked. Famous last words, as we like to say. Can you tell them the $97,000 cleanup bill, what that is, and the dumbest mistake you've seen even a smart business owner make that keeps them in the Bronze Age?
Oh man, I can't blame the small business actually, because it's not their domain of expertise. Except to say, if you know you need to get a safety certificate, then go and do it. The negligence is getting a crappy one, going to get someone to give you a certificate just so that you got a piece of paper. Actually, the mistake has been more, unfortunately, perhaps with their technology providers who they go to, who also don't know better in many cases. They're told by what they've read or technology partners or whatever else that this is the solution. But really, it becomes too subjective in that if it's really just about moving tin or selling something and whatever without actually knowing what the minimum baseline is supposed to be, then we could lead with backups or antivirus or things that are familiar, but maybe miss things like multi-factor authentication or things that we know today are actually really helpful. If there is a dumb way, it's to think that one thing, not one brand, because the brands these days actually have a good stack, but I mean one particular control like backups is enough or antivirus is enough. There's actually a list of things that attackers will move through to steal information or ransomware your machine or pretend to be you through an email compromise or something, or fraud. So I think the biggest mistake is thinking that one, antivirus is enough, right? Or backups is enough, which is the point of standards. Standards removes the subjectivity away from having to think about what we know are the most common things you should have in place, hence the safety certificate analogy. You know you need seatbelts, you know you need brake lights, you know you need airbags really these days. If you're going to smash into a pole, you kind of want to know that the things that are proven to work are actually implemented and they're accessible. So don't try and work it out on your own. I think that maybe that's the thing, is don't pretend to be the expert. Don't pretend to be the expert. Go and talk to someone who is working with a standard structure that is certifiable.
So I agree with that, Ryan. And you aren't just doing door-to-door sales. You've actually partnered up with the likes of Paxate and Acronis, who are massive global players. You're going for scale. So if I'm an IT provider, as you just mentioned, or an MSP, or even just a one-man band, listening to this, are you giving me a weapon to sell security? And I guess, how does integrating CyberCert change my business model from, if you like, selling fear to selling an asset? So walk me through the pitch.
Nice. Well, CyberCert is not the product, right? CyberCert is the catalyst or the instrument for, it's the common language, right? It's the mechanism for IT providers to align their services to a particular certification level or outcome. And the certification enables the SMB to achieve whatever their business outcomes are. And the three key ones: winning contracts in supply chains. So more and more we have enterprises and government bodies writing CyberCert into their supply chain. If you've got this, then you can do business with us, instead of answering the subjective questionnaires that overwhelm the SMBs. So winning contracts is what certification unlocks. Better insurance premiums, which may be cheaper, may be the same, but actually more accurate. We have many examples now of bronze even unlocking 15% discount, silver 20, gold 25% discount. Discounts are actually relatively easy to get today, but you want to make sure the quality of the policy is good. Certification enables the quality of the policy to be improved because it's predictable in terms of what you're being, or what controls you've got in place. So winning contracts, better insurance coverage, premiums, etc. The third one is compliance. Every company under the Corporations Act, the duty of care in some of the other global jurisdictions, means that they must demonstrate reasonable steps that they have protected their business. CyberCert is endorsed by the law societies here as being demonstrating the reasonable steps. It doesn't provide the safe harbor for them, but it gives them a certainty. Certification is the demonstrable evidence that you've met your reasonable steps. So hearing those outcomes, that's what tech providers can now talk about. Selling tech. It's not about selling backups. It's not about selling fear. It's about selling the outcomes that cybersecurity, just like brakes help you drive faster on the highway, actually, because you can slow down. Cybersecurity and certified cybersecurity allows you to have a more meaningful outcome-based conversation.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And, if I was a small business owner and I'm trying to talk to another business owner, I'd like to just say, instead of approaching my colleague and saying, you're going to be hacked, this is going to happen, fear tactics, make sure you've got your backups. Instead of that approach, it's, hey, have you seen this framework where if we have these various stacks, so we're protecting our computers, we're backing up our systems, we've got protection to access our systems. I like to use that house analogy, really. So if I've got a house and I've got shutter doors, I've got the security door, the gate, the cameras. Now, I know I can't stop anyone who wants to break in, but if I've gone to the effort to minimize the risk, and hand on heart, I can sleep knowing that. And that framework is standard across no matter what you're doing and what you're building, apartments, houses, units, whatever you want, then we're all in unity, and we've just made it harder because, let's face it, we're driving that car down the road and we see that factory or that house that doesn't have a fence, doesn't have anything but just the front door, and everyone else does. Guess who the hacker's going for? And that's where, the battle is, as you said, to make people understand that you're just making it too easy, and you will be an easier and simple target because you've made it easy for them. It's not personal. It's not like they're targeting you because you're Ryan from Queensland who runs this company. You've just made it easy for them to access. And that's how I like to put it.
Yeah, you're very good. And do you know what? Coming back to don't fear the fear, actually, there is a legitimate worry that if you don't have brakes and seatbelts, you will go through the windscreen. Actually, this is what's going to happen. And so, bronze, S&P 1001 Tier 1 CyberCert bronze shuts the front door to the most common internet threats. You will get hacked. Absolutely. If you don't have the fundamentals, you will lose your information. It's likely your business will get popped and shut down and you won't recover. That fear is legitimate. That is a reality that is okay to share. To say, by the way, but don't worry about that now, because bronze means you've shut the front door. Silver means you're insurable. Gold means you've met the most common compliance criteria. So the fear is often in the unknown, right? I don't know what to do. It's like we've now taken away the thinking, just do the front door stuff. Otherwise, you will be the slowest beast in the herd. You will be the one that is the easiest to pop. That fear is okay to share because it is a legitimate impact that we know can be reduced with the most common controls.
Yeah, I love that. So it's easier to say to someone to, here's a framework for a type of table you need, instead of just going and getting the IKEA flat pack, which we all know is very frustrating because we get to right to this point and that's not working and realize 18 steps ago we were meant to put a bolt in there and you've got to pull it apart and you're like, I've been here for 3 hours. Oh my God.
That's right. And it's missing a leg. Yeah, the point is, if we love metaphors today. If you're going to give the small business a headache, then the Panadol is actually the certifiable programs of work. It's like you're going to get hit, it's going to hurt unless you've got the padding on and whatever else, right? So here's how you can mitigate. It's not the most comprehensive. To your point, if someone wants to kick the front door in or drive a tank through it, they will, for sure. But at least you haven't been negligent. At least you know you got backups. At least you know you got insurance. At least you know you got the things that can help you sleep at night.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I just want to go back to one thing that we spoke about, which was, we're talking about ego. So I was reading your work on The Shift, and you treat the ego like an outdated operating system or malware. It's has helped us survive, I guess, to a certain point, but now it's crashing my computer. So
Hmm.
for those leaders who are actually listening to this, who has the green light at work and red light at home, what's the first patch they need to install today to stop that crash? And I guess, do you say, is it meditation or is it something more radical?
The biggest question is, what's your biggest fear? Okay. And there's four common fears. The fear of not being seen as something you don't want to, right? So this is the usually success and failure, right? The fear of not being liked or rejected, and these are usually sensations in the body. The seen is the head space, the heart space is the rejection or the love. There's this fear of safety, which is usually in the tummy. And then there's pleasure and pain, which is usually in the groin. And that is an indicator that will tell you the story of the outdated maps or the ego structure that has been really helpful to navigate to here, but is now an outdated map. It's like using an iPhone from iPhone version 1 without an updated map navigating 2026 in New York. It just doesn't work. You'll run into walls. And so, again, it's not to fear the fear, it's to bring it up, face it. And then the question is, what would you do without the fear? That immediate answer is the authentic guidance to say, well, actually, I need to go and talk to this person that I've been avoiding. I need to go and ask someone for help. I need to clean this thing up, right? If the fears are in the driver's seat uncontrollably, then there's a little bit of work to do there.
That's amazing advice. So for all the leaders out there you go. Now, we can't have a podcast on cybersecurity and not talk about AI. We're looking at the future, but we are in this reality now that AI attacks SMBs at speeds that we literally can't even imagine. And we've seen lots of cases on that. You and I have seen it on our LinkedIn posts with various, even local cybersecurity people saying you need to be on board with this, or you need to protect yourself from this. With the SMB 1001 being updated annually, I guess it feels like that's your way of fighting that. And so if you had to predict the dumbest way to get hacked in 2026, what is the one threat nobody's talking about, and how does the gold tier stop it?
I would say it's speed, that AI is just amplifying the traditional attacks. So what you will find in the bronze and the silvers are the most common things to shut the front door, right? There are reports these days that show that if you have those 17 controls in silver, that absolutely means you're not the slowest beast in the herd. So the ransomware attackers will move on. It's too hard. You got backups, you got fraud, you got email security, you got MFA, you got a bunch of stuff, right? So AI will amplify the traditional threat vectors and compromises. That is the biggest risk at the moment. It doesn't even need to be advanced AI. It doesn't even need to be good. It's just super fast, right? Gold has all of the things that you would expect to have not to be the slowest beast in the herd, and it has incident response in it, so you can respond and recover. It has digital asset registers, so you know exactly where stuff is. It has cyber insurance and business insurance built into gold in 2026, and it has an acceptable or a how to use AI policy as part of the gold stack. It's too new still for SMBs to work out what the AI architecture is, or the actual technical engineering standards, which Dynamic Standards International DSI doesn't do. But at least it gives you the fundamentals in there that mean you've met your notifiable data breach obligations, your ransomware reporting obligations in Australia. Gold is actually, as gold as it could be for an SMB. And then as you go to platinum and diamond, it's then further hardened and independently verified.
The fact that you're putting the frameworks in place to minimize the risk so that these hackers and attack vectors go right down. So they look at you, they say, yeah, Ryan's house is too fortified, too much risk. Let's go down the road to this guy and see what it's doing, is amazing. Because as you said originally or previously, that if we have the protection in place and we minimize the risk, we know what the fear is there.
Yep.
And we're faced. And I might know nothing about IT because that's not my forte, but I've got someone who does, and all I say is, Mr. IT man, I've heard of this SMB 1001 and I want to, this framework looks like something we need to do for our business because we've got a contract with so-and-so and that's what they're asking. Then the IT guy doesn't technically have to go and learn anything new. He just needs to look at it and say, oh yeah, well, I can protect you. I've got this software. I can back you up. I've got this software. I can put email protection in place, and we can run off the cloud and have this protection and 2FA in place. Yeah, done. No worries, sir. We can achieve this. Like anything, of course, there's going to be money involved, but that's just how it works in business. But once it's set, you're not really doing, you're not going to have too many big changes from year to year, really, are you?
So really, as the standard moves annually, it can, the steering committee, so I lead CyberCert, not DSI is the standards body. So the Dynamic Standards International Steering Committee, their job is to steer what the updates are, how the updates need to move year on year, quarter on quarter as they meet. One of the key things they look at, feedback from the community. There's hundreds and hundreds of partners of CyberCert now. There's thousands of SMBs that are here adopting this, and they feed back, this is what we need, or this is what's not working, or this is what needs to update, because passwords, for example, are becoming obsolete in a certain context. So we need to think about password managers and different sorts of ways in which to authenticate. So one of the things that steering committee considers is what's accessible, affordable, and internationally available to small businesses, given that it's an international standard. So could there be major changes year on year? Only if it has now become so important for an SMB to have at one of the 5 levels of SMB 1001, and or it's just become super accessible and affordable now that it can actually be integrated into the standard. And endpoint detection and response, or EDR, is one of those things that came in to the standard in 2026 that wasn't specifically called out last year because, 12 months, 18 months ago, maybe it wasn't as affordable for the hairdresser in Vanuatu as it is today.
Yeah, I love that. The hairdresser in Vanuatu. Poor guy gets picked on for everything.
I know. They just want to cut hair, not be attacked.
Ryan, I want to ask you a question that you asked yourself when you left PwC. You help people become unstuckable. If you could teleport back to the Ryan of 10 years ago and you're sitting in that office, successful but empty, what is the one thing you know to be true today, even if you couldn't prove it back then?
You're not broken.
Love that. That is the best. That's so simple and amazingly powerful. Ryan, look, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. What you have achieved, what you have done for the backbone SMBs, which not for this country, but for many countries, to make it achievable so even they could be at the standard that, the corporate environments that you came from, is an amazing achievement. You've learned so much in life. You have the unstackable.ai coaching environment. So how can our listeners get in contact with you?
Hit me up on LinkedIn. So Ryan Ettridge, LinkedIn, that'll have all the links there, all the contacts, and send me a DM and let's chat.
Yes. And I will continue the series with the CyberCert and the SMB 1001. So keep your eyes out, people. I'm definitely going to be following up on the analogies and the frameworks to make it simple for you to understand so you can approach your IT person, or you can reach out to any of us if you'd like to. Thank you so much. And Ryan, have yourself an awesome day.
Amazing. Thanks, buddy.